going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today we're talking FPL Watchlist for game week 25. So this is 5 players that I've put together that I'm either looking at for this week or maybe in the coming weeks based on their good stats, good fixtures, or whatever it might be. Obviously, I'm recording this before the end of game week 24 because Liverpool have still got another game before you watch this, and to be honest, I'm recording this before Liverpool even play their first game. But given that we all know that Liverpool players are the ones to get anyway, they're not going to feature in this video, so hopefully nothing that happens today will affect the video at all. So I'm going to go through the 5 players in just a sec. Before I jump into that, I did want to say the video has been sponsored by OneFootball once again, so if you've not already checked them out, completely free app in the link in the description below, or you can just search OneFootball on Android, iOS devices. You can get all your lineup news, team news, live scores, kind of everything you need as an FPL manager. So if you've not already tried it out, I know plenty of you already have, but if you haven't, it's completely free. Link in the description below, or just search OneFootball on the Android and iOS stores. So first up we have Mr. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and you've probably heard me talk about him on kind of the videos this week going into game week 24. Obviously not one to buy because he's been suspended, but he will be back in game week 25. Upcoming fixtures are pretty good as well, so Burnley away, Newcastle at home, Everton at home and Man City away over the next 4 game weeks. And his stats himself are pretty good. Obviously, I looked at the last 4 matches rather than the last 4 game weeks because he's been missing them through suspension. 9 shots, 8 shots in the box, 2 chances created, and he's got 3 goals there. So he's been pretty consistent all season, but he did miss out on the Sheffield United game as well as the Chelsea game due to suspension. But he'll be back in game week 25. Outside of those 2 games that he missed, again, through suspension only, he hasn't missed a game all season. He's got 14 goals and 3 assists. That's 17 attacking returns in 22 games. So it's not been too bad at all for him. I don't think he's necessarily been overlooked this year. I just think his price and different options, obviously there's been so many cheap forward options, which we're going to talk about in this video as well. And also, you know, the likes of Vardy and Rashford, who are available for cheaper. All are options. And it just is, you know, sometimes it's just the situation that happens with FPL. That you can't fit a certain player in at a certain time no matter how much you want them. But now could be the time to get him in. There is one thing worth saying though, that game week 28 fixture against Man City away will be a blank if Man City reach the Carabao Cup final, which is a very, very good chance of them doing, because they're playing Man United, they're already ahead, and I don't see Man United coming back, as much as that pains me to say. So he's probably going to miss that game. So if we do bring him in, it's going to be for a short-term kind of stint of 3 games. Then he'll either need to be benched, or you have to transfer him out again and hope that he can get enough points in the 3 game weeks before that to make it worth the while. I think position has been talked about as a little bit of a worry. He can sometimes play on the right wing or left wing or as a centre forward. It depends who else plays. If Lacazette plays, then Aubameyang tends to get moved to one of the wings. That being said, I looked at all the positions he's played so far this season on Transfer Market. And even if you look on there, when he's played right wing, left wing, he's still scored. He's got penalties. So he's got more than enough in his locker. And again, 17 returns in 22 games is a pretty decent return already. I think it's still probably pretty difficult to fit him in if you've got Liverpool double up Salah, Mane and De Bruyne and maybe Vardy thrown in there as well. So it is quite hard to fit him in, which again is a problem a lot of people have had. And also Aguero is obviously doing really well at the moment as well. So he's not necessarily an obvious pick to put in, but I'm looking at it. No rotation worries like Aguero has. Vardy's starting to worry about him a little bit. Did go off with an injury in game week 24, though it's not a hamstring injury, it's a glute injury apparently, so he might even be back for 25. But Leicester's fixtures stiffen up a bit for the next 3, and Arsenal's are slightly better. So I've kind of got the cash to make the upgrade, so I'm thinking of doing it. And that blank is a bit of a worry. It could be too much of a short-term move for you, but definitely one to put on the watch list. He's going to be fully fit, raring to go, had a bit of a rest, and you got to think he's going to be straight back into that Arsenal team in game week 25. Calvert-Lewin, not much of a kind of under-radar pick, but definitely someone I have to put on my watch list. I feel like when I went more pay, Calvert-Lewin's kind of punished me a bit already. His underlying stats are pretty good, which you're going to go through in a sec. So definitely one I have to add to my watch list as a player that I don't already own. Fixtures are okay in the very short term. Watford away, Palace at home. Then it gets pretty tricky. Arsenal away and Man United at home. So I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. In terms of underlying stats, you know, since he's been playing 90 minutes, first under Ferguson, then under Ancelotti, he's continued to get the shots in the box, high volume as well, which is kind of what you want from a striker. Plenty of chances to get those goals. 13 shots in total, 11 in the box, 3 chances created, and then 2 goals in the last 4 matches. And that's what I mean. He's not just showing goal scoring form since he's been back into the team and playing kind of 90 minutes or 90 minutes more often than not. He's also backing it out with underlying stats. So he's in form and he's got the stats and somewhat of fixtures over the next couple. And 11 shots in the box is actually 4 for attackers over the last 4 matches as well. And I think the thing that I like about him over the likes of Morpay, which maybe I should have given a bit more consideration to, even though Morpay was definitely unlucky not to convert some of those shots into points last week. But obviously Calvert-Lewin's playing in a better side. You'd imagine Everton in general will do better, especially under Ancelotti as well. So he definitely looks like a player who should be tempting to bring in even with the fixtures. The only worry is the longer term fixtures don't get much better. So Watford away and Palace at home, outside of top 6 teams, they're probably not 2 you'd want to play, especially Watford right now. They're doing so well. So as a non-owner, I'm kind of hoping that they might stump Everton. But obviously Everton is still a very good side. And for Calvert-Lewin's price, you don't necessarily need him to smash in a double-figure haul every week. He's almost like an enabler at 6 million. So if you can get a return for you every other game or something like that, you should probably be more than happy. But after the Arsenal-Man United game, it's Chelsea, Liverpool, Norwich, Leicester and Spurs in the next 5. So over a period of 7 games, they're playing Arsenal, United, Leicester, Spurs, Liverpool and Chelsea. The only kind of top 16 they're not playing is Man City. But when you throw Leicester in there, that's not going to be much more of an easier game anyway. And you probably won't get a more difficult run all season. So it is difficult, I think, to bring him in right now, despite his underlying stats. But I think he has to be added to the watch list. If you've got a space for a cheap striker, I mean, there's lots of options right now. We're going to talk about a couple more in a minute, but he could be one that goes on there. He keeps getting the stats that, the chances to convert into goals, and he's converting them into goals. There's not much more to dislike at 6 million. So I think Deeney's one that's not on this in this video at all, but his underlying stats are very similar, and he's on penalties. And the fixtures, although they're not great, they're not as bad as Everton, so he could be one to look at as well. To be honest, Deeney was a bit unlucky not to make the cut for this video, but I think there's so many, it's kind of a plethora of cheap forward options right now. We've got to be looking at least 2 of them, I think. Just because trying to fit in Aguero and Aubameyang and Vardy is very difficult. So you probably want 2 cheapies along, maybe even along with Ings, but if not Ings plus one other. So Calvert-Lewin's got to be on the list. Doesn't look like he's going to stop scoring anytime soon. The fixtures would be a little bit of a put off, but maybe you can get something from them anyway. Arsenal and Man United not notorious for defensive abilities at the moment. So we move on to defenders for the next one. Lascelles, 4.2 million at Newcastle, of course. The fixture run for Newcastle gets very good right about now as well. So definitely one to look at. Norwich at home, Arsenal away, Palace away and Burnley at home over the next 4 alone. Now the stats aren't great, as you can see on screen. It's zeros across the board. No goals or assists in the last 4 games. I think it's only 1 goal all season. No shots in the box, etc. So we probably shouldn't expect too many attacking returns from him. But he is 4.2 million. Let's not forget that. I know how good Lundstrom has been. Don't get me wrong. I do think there's probably a very good chance that he gets his place back from Besic, which we'll have to wait and see till game week 25. But as a general, we shouldn't be too greedy when it comes to defenders. And obviously, he has got his goals. There's potential for more this season, but not if he doesn't get any shots in the box. So for 4.2 million, maybe we are just expecting some clean sheets and bonus points along the way, which isn't necessary to be sniffed at 4.2 million. But obviously, we have, again, kind of like forwards, had a plethora of cheap 4 million options at the moment as well. Up until game week 32, so I looked at the season fixture ticket on Fantasy Football Scout. Go and check that out in the members area if you haven't already. And Newcastle had the best fixtures right up until game week 32, so this isn't necessarily a short-term buy, but also a long-term one as well. And of course, at that price, you don't have to play him week in, week out. It can be used as part of a rotation, i.e. you could skip the Arsenal game. So I think for 4.2 million, it looks like a great option right now. As I said, Lundstrom was kind of rested or rotated in the last game. We're not quite sure yet. Hopefully he'll get his place straight back. And if you got him for 4 million, you're probably going to hold anyway. Obviously, other options. You've got Brandon Williams, started 4 of the last 5 games at Man United, but I'm not sure right now. I would bet on Man United being more defensively sound than Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle have just lost Willems for the season, it looks like. But Matt Ritchie could come back in now. He's not injured. And kind of, I don't know if he would necessarily shore up that defence, but I don't think he's going to be a kind of awful player to play there. I think he'll help out that Newcastle defence, along with Lascelles, who's now back for the last couple of games as well. Obviously, another option, Rico. He seems to have won his place back if he ever lost it. He didn't play in that 1 game, but he's played the 2 since. Obviously, got an attack and return as well. Potentially, Bournemouth about to make a bit of a resurgence. They won 3-1 against Brighton, which is a huge result for them, but no clean sheet, and obviously that's just 1 match. Do we think they're going to necessarily keep on doing that for the rest of the season? Potentially. It's quite hard to call. So Rico could be an option. Obviously, if you've already got him, you're not going to drop him. But if you're looking for a new defender, then Lascelles could be the one. And one thing I should point out probably when it comes to Newcastle is the last 4 matches, they've got the highest expected goals conceded. I think it was 8.52. So pretty high, but they did play Leicester, Wolves, Chelsea and Everton. So obviously their fixture run coming up is much easier than the one they've just been on. So you'd expect them to be a bit better defensively and hopefully nick some clean sheets along the way. So if you need a bit of an enabler, maybe if you're on a wild card or not, definitely look at Lascelles. So Pérez is the first and only midfielder on this list. And I think given the fixtures, I probably wouldn't be bringing him in anytime soon. But I took a look at the underlying stats for attackers and his definitely caught my eye. So next 4 fixtures, which I just talked about, Chelsea at home, Wolves away, Man City at home, then Norwich away. So Norwich away is the start of a pretty nice run of fixtures actually for Leicester. So from game week 28 onwards, they could be decent. But again, a bit like Aubameyang, they might have a blank in game week 28. And obviously the fixtures before that are probably not worth bringing in. But given his underlying stats, I wanted to add him to my watch list anyway. Because I tend to forget players if I don't add them to the watch list. And it'll get to game week 28, 29. And I've completely forgotten about it. Now, it is a bit of a deja vu here. I looked at my game week 1 team. He was in it and he did awful, to be fair. He didn't score a single goal this season until game week 10 when obviously Leicester thumped Southampton 9-0 and he got a hat-trick. And since then, his game time hasn't been perfect. He's a bit like Harvey Barnes. Those two are one of the first two usually to get kind of subbed by Brendan Rodgers and they bring on like Gray or Albrighton or whoever it might be. So he very rarely gets 90 minutes, which is a bit of a frustration. But in the last 4 matches, he has played 90 minutes twice. So maybe that's a bit of a change going on there. And if I looked at the underlying stats as well, 5th for expected goal involvement, only behind Jesus, Mane, Rashford and Aguero. So 3.37 over 4 matches is really good. So he could be an option to keep an eye on. Granted, I don't think you're necessarily going to bring him in, but it's 6.1 million. Chelsea again, Wolves. Wolves have just conceded 2 goals. Southampton, Chelsea probably not a team that I would expect to keep clean sheets at the moment either. So it wouldn't be the worst one to bring in. I think in general in midfield right now, there's not a huge amount of options around that 6 to 7 million price. Not exactly players that we're really, really wanting to bring in. There's like punts like Martial. How good's he going to be without Rashford? There's more as well, but Spurs and he aren't doing too great. And, I don't think he's scored in 6 games or something like that. So he's probably not worth looking at either. So if you need a cheap option, maybe Perez. But granted, I would say the fixtures are a bit of a turn-off for me. So let's talk about Chris Wood, another striker on the list. And I'm putting quite a few of them down. Maybe this is because I've got more pay, but I just think there's so many options right now, as I've already said. And Chris Wood looks pretty good too. So 6.2 million. I think there's actually, if you wanted 4 big hitters in midfield, there's an argument to go for 3 cheap strikers up front, like one of Wood, Deeney, Ings, Calvert-Lewin, maybe even more pay if he can finally get some points. There's so many options. Arsenal at home, that's a fixture in the past I would have wanted to avoid, but these days I'm not so sure if I'd be too confident of a clean sheet if I was an Arsenal defender owner, so I don't think that's too bad. Southampton away is interesting because we were talking about how good they looked defensively, then they conceded 3 to Wolves, but they did keep a clean sheet against Crystal Palace in game week 24, so maybe those stats are going to get converted, so that could be tough, but they're not awful fixtures. And then Bournemouth at home, Newcastle away are pretty decent, I would say. In terms of underlying stats, 12 shots, 11 of them in the box, 4 chances created, 3 goals, 1 assist. So 4 attacking returns in the last 4 is pretty decent. And he seems to be one of those players that always seems to be scoring. He's always got good underlying stats, but we never bring him in. Maybe he's got injured, or he's not that much of a sexy player to bring in. Maybe there's more interesting options out there. But he always seems to be scoring well, but I never seem to iron him for whatever reason that might be. He's already up to 10 goals for the season. He's done that in 1,800 minutes. Now, Deeney's on 5, so half, but he's played 1,100 minutes. So a lot of us looking at bringing Deeney in now, but Wood's actually ratio of minutes to goals is actually looking pretty good at the moment and slightly ahead for the whole season. So he has been consistent. I think Bournemouth, again, talking about the fixture, did look like whipping boys, but again, they've had that kind of mini resurgence against Brighton, but it's only 1 game, so I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about that. So I think the fixtures overall are pretty good. And I do think he could be a player that might frustrate you at times. A couple of blanks, and you're going to start wondering if you've made a mistake, but his stats are usually pretty good. He usually keeps them up for the whole season, and he scored plenty of goals, as he's always done, 10 goals already. And I think he can probably keep that up even more as the season goes on, especially with these fixtures coming up. So as a more paying, I'm definitely looking at him, Deeney, Calvert-Lewin. I think I prefer his fixtures to Calvert-Lewin. I know a lot of people are going the Calvert-Lewin route, but maybe Wood is the way to go. Let me know what you think. So that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Obviously a little bit different this week because we have got a bit of time till the next game week, especially with the double game week. Liverpool aren't going to finish till next week, but I don't want to wait till then till we start doing all the normal content. So I thought I'd bring out a watch list of a few players. I think Aubameyang definitely looking like he could come in game week 25. And if I need a cheap defender, Lascelles would probably be the one right now. But let me know who's on your watch list. What do you think of my list? Is there any players I've missed and really should be looking at bringing in? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the video, etc. And if you haven't already tried OneFootball completely free, link in the description below, or search OneFootball on the Android, iOS apps. Otherwise, I will catch you next time. Cheers all.